Hello, man. How long have I known you?
65 years.
Is that how long you guys have been married?
Married 64.
Oh, that's awesome.
Years. And as I told you, we've got our 75th anniversary coming in 2012. And you were there during a very significant season in St. Giles' life. We'd love for you to tell whatever comes to mind. Maybe you could start with how you got to St. Giles and what it was like when you got there.
Okay, I was pastor of Blackstone Presbyterian Church. Been there 5 years, and I heard what was going on at St. Giles, and God was prompting me to try to get the same thing going at Blackstone, and I did. But I invited Earl Morey up to preach the Sunday after Easter, and he came up and preached, and the congregation was impressed. But what he was really doing was trying to find out all that he could about me, who I was and what I believed. And it was a few months later that they called me to become associate pastor at St. Giles. First day on the job, February.
I haven't
You told me 74?
73.
73?
Yeah.
Okay.
I went in to report for work, and Earl said to me, "Skid, you are now the pastor of St. Giles. I'm the preacher-teacher." So that pretty well defined it. And Earl was teaching a group of St. Giles members that course, and two couples in that course were already involved in the charismatic renewal. And so they began to talk a lot about that, and then things began to happen in Sunday school and church that had never happened before. And so after a year or so, Presbytery got hold of it and gave us a hard time because Presbyterians aren't supposed to act that way. You know, clap their hands, say amen. And then when it came to healing, speaking in tongues, singing in the Spirit, they couldn't go along with that. So they started to investigate, but lo and behold, they couldn't really find anything that was all that bad. Like I was telling you earlier, the membership just doubled, and we had to go to two services, and they were full. And
Now, why was that? What drew people?
Well, I began to visit everybody in their homes or at their work, and there were 800 on the roll, and I could only find about 525. And then I started to a group at the Episcopal Church downtown for people who were businessmen, mostly men, some women, and come to lunch, and we'll have a Bible study. And so in a year, that had grown to almost 200 people, 125 or so regulars, and they all started to come to St. Giles. And then I went down to VCU and, you know, was visiting around with young people that I knew who were members of St. Giles, and that grew. They would invite me down to teach this, that, or the other. And then they'd start to come to St. Giles, you know, and they were the ones that were clapping their hands and in bib overalls and
Yeah, the hippie
long hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the elders said, "What are you doing taking our church away from us?"
And he meant by having college students there, or
Having all, where are these people coming from? these aren't our type of people.
Oh, okay. Okay.
These aren't our type of people. But
So there were some growing pains when the influx of people, and I guess the charismatic renewal had its own issues, but then there were growth issues also.
yeah. And they couldn't find a seat. Someone took their seat. Well, the first time that I saw a crippled lady come into St. Giles with her husband holding her up with a walker and walked out, you know, it was hard for me to believe.
Mm-hmm.
But that happened with quite a few people with different diseases. What we did, they would be invited to come up into the chancel, and the elders would stand on each side where the choir loft is, and Earl and I would anoint them with oil, which, you know, is, if any sick among you, let him send for the elders of the church, and anoint with oil and pray over them, and the prayer of faith will heal the sick person. The Lord will raise them up. That happened at St. Giles hundreds of times. People would come from all over, 50 miles, to come to the St. Giles healing service. And, you know, you never knew what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, all of a sudden, maybe someone would start singing. And the congregation would start singing. They knew the tune, but they didn't know the words, but they were singing in the Spirit. And it was a beautiful thing. Before the worship service started there for a few years, I would go out 15 minutes ahead of time and we'd sing. You know, off the cuff, no hymn book.
Mm-hmm.
I'd just start a hymn or a song, and everybody would join in. And then I'd go back to the session room, we'd have a prayer, and go out and have the regular morning worship service. You know, we didn't know what was going to happen. We were just open for what the Lord was going to do to, you know, this morning or tonight. Never knew. But the most impressive thing is when we began to sponsor refugees. And we had 17 Cambodians in one group. And a year later, after teaching them and they're attending church, I baptized 11 of them one Sunday morning. You know Buzz Kell?
Mm-hmm.
We started him in the ministry.
Okay.
Do you know Needle's Eye?
Oh, yeah.
We started that. Price's Pregnancy Center, we started that. All from our base groups. Leaders would,
Okay.
and then we would furnish the money to get it started, usually $5,000 or $10,000, whatever it was. And they're still going.
Katie is doing the children's ministry right now. And she has lots of boys in her class. Did you have a lot of boys that acted up?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Tell me, what should I do?
You just let them be boys. And I was always pretty
You don't
mean.
hang them out the window, though.
I remember that story.
Scared.
She was in your class.
But I knew that guy. He didn't act up after
He
that.
straightened up, didn't
Yeah, he did, and he was a pain.
I have so many people in that I meet in Richmond who are in many different congregations now and have been in mission, who tell me, yeah, the Lord called me to faith at St. Giles, or I was filled with the Spirit at St. Giles, or I got my start at St. Giles. So
Yeah.
the Lord used it to seed many missions and ministries.
Yeah, I think that's what the Lord wanted to do, and He did it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, He knows that I really didn't have the talent to do it.